Okay, today on the show, we have Deidre Joyner from Red Oak Realty in East Bay in California. Now, Deirdre is a 17-year veteran realtor selling over 350 homes, totaling over 300 million in sales volume. Deirdre's production consistently ranks her as the number one or number two agent at Red Oak Realty year after year. And she was born in Berkeley to a musician and a teacher who became an East Bay realtor. They lived in a funky rental that cost $165 per month. The neighborhood was flat, friendly, and kids were out playing until the streetlights came on. And in 1979, their little rental went on the market for sale, and their folks decided to buy an ugly fixer-up in Oakland. For a few months, they stayed at their grandmother's home as they weekend warriored it, bartering music studio time for construction labor. Fast forward to now 1999, Deirdre was a young mom and a wife, and her husband and her decided to buy a 1951 major fixer-up in Redwood Heights. And it was the perfect cul-de-sac location, blocks from the same elementary school that her mother, her aunt, and she attended. And it fed into her fervor for mid-century architecture. In 2004, she left the restaurant industry and became a realtor. She's from the generation in which true grit determines destiny. She started with no leads, no clients, and a fantasy. And she built her business on the philosophy of working hard and thinking outside the box, grounded in customer service. Please follow Deirdre on Instagram at Deidre J. So that's Deidre and then the letter J. Again, Deidre J. Deirdre, welcome to the show.
Wow, thank you. I sound interesting.
You are super interesting, and we are so excited to have you on the show. Some of the best interviews we've done over the last, in my opinion, of course, over the last 4 or 5 years. And again, not just counting any other interviews we've done, but some of my favorite ones have been people from the Bay Area. I don't know why. Maybe it just attracts a more interesting type of realtor to our show, but we're so excited to chat with you. And you have a very interesting backstory, which I was so happy to share with our audience. But yeah, let's start at the beginning. I always ask our guests how they got into real estate. And I know you've been doing it now for 17 years, but can you kind of take us back to that and what prompted you to make this your career?
Well, I was in the restaurant industry and I had 2 young kids. And I remember distinctively that my son was home with a high fever, and I was given a lot of crap by my manager at the time. And I said to myself, this will be the last holiday season I will be working in the food industry. My family obviously is important, and I shouldn't be made to feel guilty for taking care of a sick child. It's really hard for women so many times to be a mom and a working mom. My mother said that I should consider real estate, which I thought, there's no way I want to do what my mother does, right? Like,
Right.
come on, no. Just on general principle, right? Like,
Sure.
I can't follow in your footsteps, no way. So my husband encouraged me to maybe pursue it, and I actually went to my local community college and took night classes, and that's where I took all of my classes for real estate, and then took a leap of faith and gave my notice, and that was in 2004. So yeah.
And we should also mention, just for anyone who's not familiar with sort of the Bay Area in general, again, I'm not a practicing realtor myself, but I live in Chicago, and I know we have lots of realtors at our firm. So I think I have a general idea of the difficulty here in Chicago. I would say the difficulty ramps up significantly, maybe exponentially in the Bay Area, because pricing, of course, is so extreme, and probably a lot of competition as well from other agents. And you started, back when I guess the market was really starting to heat up, but still, I had to be difficult with no leads. Sounds like you didn't have a huge sphere of influence to draw from. So I'd love to hear about how you got started and how you did start to succeed, once you began.
Absolutely. Because, of course, at the time, my mother was a working realtor, and I couldn't tap into her sphere of influence because that wouldn't be right. And, I think like most people, your friends and family, they love you, but they don't want to necessarily use you until you get a little experience, right?
Right. That's
Uh,
right.
so they're like, yeah, we love you, but we're not going to allow you to cut your teeth on us.
If you're
So
going to screw up with someone else and then come to us.
exactly, exactly. But my mother was in a position to refer me a few buyer leads. And of course, I did pay a referral fee. It was strictly business, but I did a lot of open houses. And you really have to put yourself out there for Oakland open houses. And I remember I thought, well, what can I give someone during an open house? Like I can give them information, I can give them my time, I can answer questions. I remember we had like a Sunday open home guide that our little local ad review, which is this little private company that kind of publishes all the open houses, the hours open, etc. And I would print that out and I would staple my business card. And I said, if you want to receive this every week, I can email it to you if you give me your email address. And so I was like, well, I want to give them something of value, or if you like this, I'm happy to look up some other options for you, because really and truly, no one cares about you. It's really
Right.
about them and their
Right.
process. At the same time, there was this huge amount of cheerleading from my office, which was trying to jumpstart some new agents to do door knocking. So I do remember doing some door knocking. I hated it. Um, but I was like, well, if this is what I have to do, this is what I have to do. Um, I started a blog. I blogged about the most hideous things starting out, like, because I had really nothing to say, no experience,
Right.
nothing to draw in. I had to go back and kind of delete some of those because I was like, wow, that's pretty bad. But open houses, I really kind of chalked up as a numbers game. And I will say that it's probably different than it is now. Back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, less people came to open houses with realtors already. You had an opportunity to be in front of people who were unrepresented. I think now, because technology has grown so fiercely, a lot of people are doing a lot of research and finding agents ahead of time online, through Yelp, through other avenues. But at that time, that was a really good avenue for me. And that really helped. I remember one of my big breaks in real estate was there was a veteran agent who had a listing interview in a neighborhood that's not far from mine. It's called the Laurel District of Oakland.
Sure.
And she said, oh, let me pick your brain. You know that area. I don't know that area. So I gave her a few little things about the neighborhood. And then I followed up with her. See, that's like the whole key, I feel like, in real estate, is following up just with everything. And I said, how did your appointment go? And she says, well, I think it went well. But I did have to ask directions to get back to the freeway.
Mm.
I was like, wow, that's not a good look. You're trying to sell their house and you don't know how to get to the freeway home. Okay. And she said, I tell you what, maybe I'll refer this to you and you can help them. But I have to tell you, I will want a referral fee. And this
Mhm.
was already referred to me. So you'll have to pay 2 referral fees.
Oh,
If
no.
you're willing to do that, I'll refer it to you. And I did.
So you're basically the third realtor
Yes,
down
yes.
the line. But you were hungry and it was worth it.
It was worth it. And, a month later, I got a listing around the corner. And then there you go. I have 2 listings in a neighborhood that's very specific, and you can build on that.
Sure.
So I think it's grit, and it's really, putting in the time and knowing that one day it will come back to you, but you don't know when. And you just have to have that faith.
And I guess you really don't know how either, right? Like it just, in this way, one of your listings came from a referral of a referral. And I've had, gosh, hundreds of people on our show, and I don't think anyone has particularly mentioned. I'm sure other people have been in that situation, but that's a way that you wouldn't expect for a lead to come. And I wanted to just circle back very quickly to something I think you said that I believe is very interesting and important to our audience, which was because open houses are still obviously quite successful depending on your market. Certainly it's a an activity that most of our listeners are probably involved in. But this idea of providing something of value, as I'm sort of cycling back through my memories of all of our different episodes and trying to remember if anyone has specifically talked about this, I'm not sure that anyone has. And it's such a simple idea, but it's so powerful. And I'm really grateful that you talked about it. Instead of just, hey, here's the brochure, here's my information, here's, whatever about you, or the home itself, which of course, I'm sure you had some of that material too. But this idea of, hey, I've got this cool thing that I can send you, and I'll staple my card to it. In fact, if you just give me your email, I'll do that every week. That's a really brilliant strategy. And I know you just sort of said it matter of fact, but I want to kind of just step on it a little bit, because I think it's really smart, because now you have somebody's contact information. Whether they work with you or not, you're going to be able to market to them in whatever fashion you think is appropriate, really indefinitely. So that really is brilliant. And even if they end up not using you, maybe they get hooked on your content and the content you send them, and maybe they pass it around or refer you to other people. So I know for you that was just probably a minor detail, but I think, gosh, what a great, smart idea that I don't think anyone else has ever mentioned on our show. So thank you for that.
Well, absolutely. I do think that, so many times I, look at other people's websites, I look at other people's content, I look at how people sell themselves. And I think that's great. You do have to sell yourself. You do have to be your own advocate. You have to negotiate for yourself, because frankly, you have to prove to your clients that you're going to negotiate for them. And you're showing that by standing up and negotiating for yourself. But really and truly, it's just like life. You might date someone because they're nice, but you like how they make you feel, right?
Yeah.
You like how they make you feel. And so that same concept, I think, really works well in client relationships, right? Your client wants to feel well taken care of, and someone wants to feel like maybe you have some insight and knowledge that they can't readily get themselves. And so sometimes I have had clients call me, or someone take my card and call me after the fact, saying, you were talking about the market, you answered questions, you made me feel comfortable. I think that, I want to talk to you about maybe being my realtor. So I think just providing something with nothing, expecting nothing in return, is really the key.
Yeah, I agree. And I also know that for you, salesmanship or sales tactics are just not part of your toolbox, which I love, because I think most people, not everyone, there are people that I guess like to be sold, but I think most of us really don't. And maybe that was different 50 years ago, when we didn't have as much information as readily accessible. But now I think people just want good, honest information. And you basically just said that as well. And I know that's a big part of your business, is just telling clients what they need to hear versus maybe what might help you win the listing or the contract.
Right. I had a listing that I got. It was a referral, so one of my past clients recommended me, but I know that they interviewed 3 people, and the house was in general in a overall good location, walking distance to BART, in a high performing school district, check. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, but it was on a highly trafficked street, and it was next door to a very big apartment building.
Mm.
And Zillow and Redfin had their house valued much higher than I felt the value was. And a lot of people look at Zillow and Redfin and they feel that those valuations apply to them. But
Sure.
they're not always, they're great in some regard, but they don't know some of the subtle differences of the property. And so I told them, I said, I don't think your house is worth anywhere near that. I would love to get that for you, but let me break down all of the solds in your area and tell you how they're different. And I thought for sure they were going to go with someone who told them that they could get a higher price. And they went with me. And thank God I, gave them the data and the insight, because they didn't get anywhere close to that. But at the end of the day, they felt well taken care of, well represented, and there was no surprise at the end.
Right.
Because we started with that candid conversation.
Yeah, gosh, what a smart it is technically a strategy, but just being honest and forthright. I'm shocked it isn't done more often in this industry. Not that people are intentionally deceptive, but I think in the case of this listing, maybe you wouldn't talk about the traffic on the street because it's a negative. It's going to affect the value. And then the apartment building next door, it's going to affect the value. And also having to discount, Zillow and Redfin's estimates is also not fun. I just looked up this condo I just purchased about 4 or 5 months ago. And it says on Zillow, and I'm not picking on Zillow. Zillow's a partner on this podcast. They come on every month. They're really lovely people. But it says that my place is appreciated almost $150,000. Well, that is just not the case. I would love for that to be the case. And maybe I'd even sell it right away. But the reality of it is it isn't. And so even I get excited when I see that, ooh, my place is appreciated, except then I actually think about it. I'm like, actually, it hasn't. So I know that is a really important conversation, because even though I'm in the industry, I see that number, that Zestimate or whatever, and I go, oh, look at that. And then I go, wait a minute. But it's important.
It's hard because with the low inventory being such a huge driver for so long, sometimes you're looking, in a year's time, 8, 12 listings, and you have one that's a complete outlier, a unicorn of a property that you see rainbows when you walk through the door, and that's going to skew everything, right? So that's the hard part. And the other challenging part with real estate, and to be able to articulate it well, is, for most communities, unless you're buying into a condo building that has a lot of volume to analyze, nothing is like in kind. So you're comparing kiwis to grapes,
right?
And you have to know the fruit and be able to explain it. And that's the thing that I think you have to do, is really immerse yourself and educate yourself, so that when you are talking to clients, you have the confidence to speak out based in data, because relationships are great, but there's a lot of people out there that are analytical people who are like, okay, you're nice, now show me the data, show me the analytics. And you can't just be one note. You have to really encompass the whole picture.
And you also live and work in an area that is very tech focused as far as career and industry. And you probably have a tremendous amount of engineers and just different people that are analytical people in nature and by nature, and really do want to pour over that information. So I imagine that's very helpful. I mean, it's helpful anywhere, because I think most of us want the information to be able to review. Not everyone, of course. Sometimes it's just an emotional connection and we say, oh, that's our realtor. Yeah. But I imagine in your area, that's particularly useful. I mean, I'm stereotyping the Bay Area, but I'm just
you're
in general.
Absolutely right. And you could be working with someone single, or someone in a partnership, and one person can be a relationship person and one person can be an analytic, and you have to be able to talk to both. But at the end of the day, immersing yourself so that you can be an expert is important. And I also think it's very important to kind of stay in your lane, if you will, and work areas that don't go too far outside your comfort zone, because then you get yourself in a little trouble and then you get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I I think what do they say? It's the jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like if you try
Yeah,
to be everything to everybody and try to work the entire, geographic area that, in your case, it's pretty vast.
right.
Then you're going to have a situation where you don't know how to get to the highway maybe,
Yeah,
and that doesn't look good,
yeah.
in a client meeting. I never ever get to this part of the interview, and I absolutely have to, because
Okay,
these two stories are incredible, and I've made a promise that I will not be running out of time before we get to these going forward, because they're so great. After
okay.
300 episodes, I'm like, I'm never letting these pass by again. Can you please, you sent us two great stories. One's your funniest experience, and one's an unusual. But let's start with the funniest one. I don't want to ruin what it is, but basically the $700,000
Okay.
contract. Yeah.
So this was about 5 years ago. It was a
This
little,
is great.
I had this cute little listing. Just to give you some context, in our area, people underprice listings anywhere from 10 to 40% to try to
Wow.
get, I know it's interesting, but it's been like that for years. And but people are underpricing to kind of set the table for a lot of interest, multiple offers, and of course, you want the bidding war for your seller. When you're a listing agent, you have a different objective than being a buyer's agent. So this house was listed at 699. We knew that it was worth roughly around 800 ish. I say this to say it was a busy open house because, at 699, we had a wide audience and the house was full. And a gentleman walks in and asks me how much the house is. And I said, it's listed at 699. And he walks around and he comes back and he says, I'll take it. And he pulls out his publisher clearinghouse, you won $1 million certificate, and said, I'll just sign this over to you, and I'd like to do the transaction right here, right now. And meanwhile, I want to be sensitive and respectful to everyone. I just said, I'm sorry, we have set an offer date, and I don't handle the finances directly. I'll have to refer you to an agent. And it was almost like you could hear a pin drop in the open house.
Wow.
But I think that the bottom line is, I treated him with respect,
Sure.
and he didn't like that he couldn't buy the house right then and there. But he left, and then we resumed the conversations at hand with the open house. But it just kind of goes to show. I mean, I think it was like, wow, I haven't encountered this before. But at the end of the day, you do have to treat everyone with respect and kindness.
And for those who are maybe younger and aren't familiar, the Publishers
Oh,
Clearinghouse, just to explain what this is, was every person in America would receive this letter in the mail that
yeah,
said, you may have one, but it would make you think that you had one, because they'd give you,
yeah,
they'd send you a mailer, and there would be like kind of a fake check in there, and it looked real. And then eventually, what were they selling? Magazine subscriptions? I
yeah.
forget what. Yeah.
Wasn't it Ed McMahon? Am
That
I?
was, and then Ed McMahon would, whatever the
Yeah,
actual winner was,
yeah.
they would do it live on TV, and they would this big giant novelty check. And I was almost thinking when you first sent us that story that somebody walked in who was the actual winner with a big giant novelty check, but this was somebody who came in with basically the same mailer that everyone else gets. And
Yeah.
you really were put in a tough position, because yes, you're in a room of other people. You certainly don't want to humiliate somebody. But boy, what a funny and not to
Right.
poke fun at that person, but boy, that's a funny situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I probably submitted that in my younger years to think that, oh, I might win this. I mean, that shows
Oh,
my,
me too. I did
that shows
too.
my age. That shows my age. Oh, I might have won this.
I did the same thing. And then also, I am, we have an astrology story, and it doesn't matter what I think of astrology, but I love this story. So please tell us your Mercury story.
Well, prior to this year, I wasn't very familiar with Mercury in retrograde. And, I had some clients and I met with them, and they said, it's really important that we get on before the next Mercury in retrograde. I was like, no problem. I look at the calendar, I see the date, and I'm like, as long as I get the house on the market before that date, we'll do it. And we are, managing maybe 10 different things to get done, also managing their schedule of work. So literally we have maybe a 4 or 5 week window. And so I find out that they actually wanted to be on the market and pending and everything negotiated by then. And I had to call and say, I'm really sorry. I'm not really well versed in this Mercury in retrograde. I really just thought I had to get it on the day before. And they were disappointed. I mean, I fell on the sword. I was like, what can I do? What can I do to make this right? Do you want to delay a month? What do you want to do? So we ended up going on the market, and we did negotiate a contract during Mercury in retrograde. But we made it where they did not sign their final closing documents until retrograde was over, because that was the actual documents and the contract to close. So yes. So now I will completely understand if someone comes to me and says that they want to avoid those dates, that they mean that whole 5 week period or 4 week period, that they don't want to do any negotiations during that time. But it was a little embarrassing. Perhaps I should have done a little research when they told me that, but I was like, yeah, no problem. We'll get on the day before.
Maybe you could find some astrology meetups and go and say, hey, if anyone if Mercury being in retrograde is an issue for anyone, I have experience doing this particular type of transaction. But it really goes to the point that different people have different beliefs, and you have to respect and honor them. Despite your knowledge or understanding of it. And you have to, as you said, take it on the chin if something doesn't necessarily go as according to plan. But I think it speaks to your ability to, again, similar to the other story about the gentleman with the check, and I'm not putting these people in that same category, but having people who have different beliefs and having to say, I will figure this out. I will make this work. And you did. And I think it really goes to your ability to meet people where they are, as opposed to where you'd like them to be. And I think that has got to be one of the keys to your success is saying, okay, you're here. I will meet you here. I will do what you need. And I know that hard work, would you say that grit, I know you've spoken about, is that the most important quality you think that has contributed to your success, or certainly maybe one of the most?
I would say it is probably the one of the top three, simply because people are busy. Here's the thing. I am the biggest sensitive person out there. Somebody doesn't respond to me, I'm like, oh, maybe they don't like me. I mean, it's hard.
Too.
You're really putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And sometimes life happens and people are busy, and sometimes you don't get a response for a month. So it really took a lot for me to go, okay, like I emailed someone last night and the subject line was like, checking in, not to pester.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, I know you might be busy. I don't know where you are. I would really love to work with you. If you decide that selling is the right thing for you to do, I'm here if you need me. And sending people maybe a second or third email that's not aggressive, but yet supportive, and trying to figure out that fine line and that voice where you can articulate, hey, I'm just being proactive. I'm not here to be pushy. I'm not here to talk you in or out of buying or selling. but I really did like you, and I really do think I can help you. And doing that when you've got no response and it's been a month or a week or 2 weeks, it's really like getting discouraged, not getting a listing, losing a client, and trying to start over the next day with the faith and grounded in service. Really, that's the thing, because it's very hard to do this day in and out. When you think about it, and I get a lot of business from Yelp now because I've been on Yelp for so long. But you think about it, let's just say I sell 30 or 40 houses in a year. I might have some people who've worked with me in the past who are like, I'm ready to sell, and there's no interview. But I've even had past clients decide that they want to interview me and another agent or two because they've been told that that's the right thing to do. So you might be, if you sell 30 to 40 houses, 100, yikes, sorry.
That's okay.
You might be, I'm going to put my phone on airplane mode. Sorry. You might
No problem. I thought it was my phone. I was like, oh my gosh.
No. You might be on 100 interviews in a year.
Yeah, that's right.
And, you will get rejected.
Yes.
Period. You will be rejected, and you have to keep going because that's just the business. I mean, just think about it, how you live in your life. You might explore multiple restaurants to go to. You might explore multiple doctors. Some doctors are not going to get selected. Some restaurants are not going to get selected. And you have to tell yourself, this is part of business.
It is. And you obviously have done a tremendous job building your business through honesty, through hard work, through perseverance, and also just, being as you said earlier, following up. It seems like such a simple concept, but I have interviewed so many top producers from all over the country, and most of them mention following up as if it's obvious to them, but they're always shocked that everyone doesn't do that. So I am so impressed with how you've grown your business. And I want everyone who is listening to, please, if you want to learn more about Diedre, or if you're a buyer, a seller, a renter, an investor in the Bay Area, the East Bay Area, Diedre would love to work with you. She is the top producer at her company and one of the top producers in the entire area. So if you are a realtor who wants to learn more about Diedre and just see how she's grown her business and see a little bit more about what she does, follow her on Instagram. You can find her at Deidre J. That's Deidrej. You can also easily find her, Deidre Joyner. Just Google her; she's everywhere. And also, Deidre, if there is anyone out there who would like to maybe consider interviewing you to help them buy or sell a home or rent, what's the best way they should reach out to you?
I mean, I love a good text, but email's great because I can keep track of it. And I'm Deidre at redoakrealty.com. Diedre, Deidre at redoakrealty.com. Thanks.
Well, Diedre, thank you so much for being on our show. We are huge fans of what you've accomplished and your success, and the feedback, the information you gave on this episode is huge, because it oftentimes I found over the years that it's so much about fundamentals, and you are like a master of fundamentals. And so you gave our audience some really great fundamentals today as a reminder of what to do to keep going and grow their business. So thank you so much on behalf of Diedre and myself, I want to thank the audience for continuing to listen and support our show. Please, we ask everyone who is listening or watching to just do one thing: tell a friend. Think of one other real estate agent that could benefit from hearing this great interview with Diedre, and send them a link to our show. Easiest way to do that, send them right over to our website, keepingitrealpod.com. Or if they're a podcast person, just have them pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real, hit the subscribe button. But please tell a friend. And on behalf of our audience and myself, I want to thank Diedre for taking time out of her crazy busy life of being a mom and a business owner and runner and a realtor, for coming on our show and sharing her wisdom with with everybody. So thank you, Diedre, again. And we will see everybody on our next episode. Thanks, Diedre.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great day.